Oh, thank you for that recording
Thank
button.
you.
I don't know if you have a poem that you want to read first, if you want like a prompt into reading a poem first, or like what you were thinking when you were preparing for that. But please welcome and take.
So I'm literally,
Yeah.
as you were speaking, yeah, I was just thinking actually, I think what I think would work this evening is for us to be, I don't know. Usually there's a sequence, okay? So I usually I kind of put together a couple of poems with that where it starts in a certain way, you know, the poems I read, and then there's and it's worked before because prior to that I never had an order, and then it just didn't work well. But tonight I think I just want us to do something different, and it's a different space, and I think I'm just going to be figuring it out with you guys as we speak, really. Because life happens, and even though the poems just came out like a couple of months ago, there's been so many changes, many beautiful ones and many difficult things recently. And so it's the beautiful thing about poetry is, you know, it can almost be a different book tonight based on where we start and what is on your mind and what we're thinking, you know. So first of all, E.E. Cummings, that poem is absolutely beautiful, and I like him quite a lot, and it reminded me of one of the little forgotten poems in this collection that I never really read out loud. So maybe it would be a good place to start if you like.
Yes.
Yeah, so we do that. Okay, so really, it's one of those, but like I don't know how to explain it, but it was just kind of slipped in at the end, you know, and it's very dear to me as well, this poem, and I remember distinctly again when I wrote it and why. But yeah, before you read those lines by E. Cummings, I would have never, let's say, opened with this. Okay, so this is called You Are Me and I Am What Happens When. Okay. Everything is glitter. Everything you touch with your beautiful empty hands becomes history. Ancient, purposeful, already past death. Your only preoccupation is the past. No yesterday is water under the bridge. Not unlike God, you dwell in the aftermath, the vacuum in your chest when the world says no. Loss so lonely, you mistake it for everyone else. And you dine on excuses, so here. It was never yours to undo. The only lesson worth learning is how to do without forgiveness. Even you recognize at the gleam of failure, a glow and unsparing, the unparalleled pleasures of days spent unwisely.
Wow. Just for interest's sake, this is the poem that literally probably as I was sitting down, that's the last poem that I just read from your.
Really?
So that's just mind.
This now, yeah, I mean, at the very end, it's like hit it, and I literally took it out and put it back in, but it fits tonight, and I thought it like it, yeah. I really struggle to find my words often, and I think that's maybe why but we'll talk about writing, and I want to hear from you guys as well. Really, I really want it to be a conversation. So if you have a thought or something, you can tell me. But you know, sometimes there's these poems that like they're not filler, but I don't know you don't know exactly why they're there almost. Like I've always liked it, but it was not my favorite child, let's say. But then it's nights like this where yeah. So thank you anyways. And that's what I love about reading other writers' work, because it just prompts that kind of thought. Yeah. So that's how I would open. Now what do you think? Where shall we go? Should we go to the dark place? Should we go to the happy place? What are we gonna do? I have so much power right now. I can just say anything. I can even pretend I'm reading from this. I could just be reading from a different book.
I mean, this is we're here to hear your poetry. We didn't say from where. Um, I think, you know what? Let us go to I want to see if we can maybe go a little, can kind of edge into the dark and kind of emerge again.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if that's,
Yeah,
yeah.
I must say I love joking around, but ideally there's no dark place to be lost in. It should be tender, and up and down.
Yeah.
But that's again, I'm sharing, and I hope you guys don't get lost or you think, oh, what the hell is she talking about? But I'm just trying to embody the thoughts as they come to me, But it's just this like, also because poetry is so personal, and this was so personal. Like, really, it's been an honor to have my words heard, and also terrifying, for them to be like on the shelf. It's not even like, oh well, there's hundreds of thousands of people reading them, but just the day that it came out, because also it's my first book, and the idea that the most condensed, intimate sentences and feelings and like experiences I've had are distilled into this is an interesting thing to play with. So yeah, so I think it's just this tenderness of like, I'm hoping the poetry is still there, even if the subject is not so easy. And then there's also so much beauty. And like, that's also what I really like about poetry, because, yeah. Let me read you the next poem, okay? That tries to capture this feeling. So it's called Forethought of Grief. And it comes, well, the title was inspired from a line, I can't even remember really the poet, but the poem was, I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief, and it's just this like future griefs that we sometimes get stuck on. Okay, forethought of grief. Forgive this perfect day. Its skies blued, bruising earth's clavicle. First, there was dust and dirt, and now, field. The warm green pulse on the wrist of everything. Grasslands of gasps gathered and hidden from ourselves, how we're always dying to save something for later. Extinction soaks my sleeve. I do not have time for air. Living each hour till living hurts. In the kitchen, peeling pomegranates, hoping hunger can teach me something, forgetting straight away. Giving way in your eyes are days, days, days. Pour them like paint over poems you have no home for, or bury them like warm prey under the weight of tomorrow's heart.
Okay.
Now the evening is starting.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, all right. Let me see. Let's see if I can tell you guys a story basically by reading a couple of poems, okay? So Forethought of Grief. Then the next one is called If You Ever Knew Thirst. It was when you loved the police. This morning, burn your best candles and rewild the world. Tonight, you must put everything back exactly where you found it. Do not pull her out after a fall 30 meters deep or double as dark. Often, when hurt, the wild horse leaves the herd behind to heal. If she dies, the raptors will circle her resting place. But if she lives, Lord, she will outfly the hawks home to Fisher Haven, haul the whole moon across the displeasures of day. Ask her if surviving the fall feels like the first night coming home. Her hoofbeats and hunger darkening the rivers as though a flood. And her, exquisite and almost mended, a living creature that does not demand wound from everyday galloping towards her. Or is surviving a snare gash in an abandoned barn split with sun hard to want or hobble to, and a body untouched, finding neither the refuge of night nor another's sunshade? Then there are two poems that I wrote. They are sitting side to side. You can see my notes as well. One is called What to Keep, and one is called And What You Leave Behind. So there's two, I think, instances where there are two poems on the opposite sides of the page, and they kind of either yelling at each other or talking. I'm not sure, but I'll find the other ones later. So What to Keep. Okay. The spine gathered in a soft towel, crated into some half-light, waiting to wither or wound and weep, has never known winter. These brittle gestures, a child's drawing before she learns the edge of things, half folded on the greasy counter, unsentimental. Teach her to waste the years already no good. And do it now, while time still has not begun looking for her. So that's What to Keep. And What You Leave Behind. This is a very special poem to me, actually. At 26, I am still that same plagued child, stuck between synonyms and sentences, suspended between two countries, neither of which would claim a woman this distracted, this pedantic, this wide-eyed. I'm on my knees, sifting through the parallel intensities of things. Tenderness sounds softer in English, slides like silk on the mouth. But the Libyan equivalent, grief grinds my liver when I think of you. Chafes, doesn't it? Monstrous, marvelous. It burns and burns, leaves a gutted gentleness, the kind you might learn to love if you're desperate enough. In every poem, I hide the little girl. In the best ones, she sounds nothing like herself. Resonance, dissonance, it doesn't matter. She devours all. She's mad on jasmine, eats it for dinner, leaves fruit out by the trash cans for no one. I teach her 1,000 ways to write. Do you understand me? Can you love me? Watch how pretty the poem is, how it dresses itself, its satin dress, Satan, distress, kiss me, kill me, who cares? I missed Grandpa's calls. I miss Grandpa's calls. Okay. And this next one is called Her Word Against Early Morning Light. A single house key. Communal, cutthroat, final as flowers that flowered. Look, skies blue, then blacken, and they learn just how much one can do without. The first time they viewed the property, the tenant wasn't home, so they sat in her garden for a minute and made up their mind. She knows every flower's name from print alone, poems underlined and words dog-eared, yet cannot name a trembling thing, cannot place a single touch-me-not curling from itself, not the panic grass, the lace aloe, the rose-gilt grasses. And then there is this waiting green and unnamed bush that may or may not unspool into roses. She only came to see the garden. Or if she's feeling a little luminous and not so pressed for time, to put palm to soil and say, grow. No orange or fig tree here, just rental lavender, and for their bodies a place to sleep. While he does the paperwork, she busies herself bruising petals, shears the old mattress. Wilderness escapee goes missing for a few minutes, flees like leaves at night, returns with soap, incense, candle, and a bit of flower food. And they perfume their house with, "You're here now." For one last attempt at building something that keeps, he will buy a new calendar in April, glue the first 3 months together, or give up summer. Either way, a wreckage of the days that dragged dreams they drew through the dirt she came from. Give her a tenderness worth the cues, and she'll confess she overstayed. Their laugh unfading, her floral heart, his voice, the only country she would die for. Where did the time go? Where did the time go? And she has learned silence now. The less she talks about exile, the more sure-footed their plans. in the seconds before he wakes her. The high of almost saying, stay. He thinks, maybe tomorrow. His fears clawing at her back, her word against early morning light. Wading through a decade of winters she has spent in his country, she is spent in his country, the trash bins each Tuesday, load shedding schedules, they have never missed rent, even gave up watching the news. They have dodged the daybreak as best they could, buried her passport, drank nothing but rooibos honey. He finally cracks. Never loveless, you and I. But oh, my love, if these were roses, they would have bloomed by now. What are you thinking? What are you guys thinking? Any thoughts? Any feelings?
Come through, Ed.
Tell us.
Hey, well, I've been following along in the book as you've been reading, and I'm very intrigued by the sharpening of the focus in some places, or the slight switch here, the slight switch there. Are these changes that you have been improvising as you've been reading, or are they actually changes that you've made? And I'm just curious as to.
That's a really good question. Yeah, thank you very much for that as well. Yeah. And it's true that sometimes, or in this case, for example, because I've said the words out loud before, it's funny, but when I read them out loud, I think, I need to just change it a little bit to get the message across that I intended to mean, that I think the words on the page do. You know, it's a very strange thing, but so I really appreciate that you mentioned it as well. But for example, with this poem, Her Word Against Morning Light, it is, first of all, it's little paragraphs, you know, it's little sections. Then there's also, it doesn't read like, you know, if I were to just say the words as they were, it wouldn't read like a story, and I really want my voice to make it sound like a story. The changes aren't massive, but yeah, like I really like that you noticed that. And also just in general, I think, you know, poetry spoken, just in general, I don't know what you guys think, but it's like, it's almost like it can be such a chant, such a chant, it may be. And yeah, so it's I've learned this skill recently that, okay, maybe I can tweak it a little. From Ari Sita's, actually, I was at Poetry Festival, and we had a rehearsal before the main performance, and the way he read the poems, I mean, they're printed, you know, the way he read them at the rehearsal, and then how they really, he transformed them, not what I did, but just he like really, and just watching that, I realized, wow, okay, like there's you can do that, and it just feels closer to what I wanted to say.
Yeah. So you're not attached to what's on the printed page necessarily.
No, not that's I've never thought of it as attachment. You know, no. And sometimes, and this is like just like a little thing, but sometimes it's, you know, some of the poems I know I cannot read out loud, like they look like they're supposed to on the page, and it just I think I would need to rewrite the poem completely to be able to say it, you know. But that's also I don't know. Thank you.
Hey, I didn't want to,
yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Thank you. So, tell me.
Do you want to read more? Is there someone else that has a response or a thought or a prompt? I don't know, but
yeah, what are you guys thinking? I mean, I'm having fun. So maybe I can read you another poem.
yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
this one's from 17 May 2011, and it was the day that I came to South Africa 14 years ago, basically, like the day I arrived. And it also coincidentally happened to be the day that the book came out, which of course we didn't know at the time that the launch would be then. So it's the find it. Ed, find it. All right, so we all learn to eat our grief in pieces. Paraphrasing home. When you leave, do it like a man in love with war. Or a little boy naming his country. Your grandmother stands framed by the arched doorway, her expression eclipsed. Through stained glass, she spits. A worthy woman knows when to let the dying die and unbolts the gate for you. Then I want to read you. So the idea behind this book, by the way, was that it's divided into 3 sections. The first night, the first hang, and the first touch. And that the idea was, I was like really fascinated by the idea of a wound, you know, and the healing of a wound it's actually medically 4 stages, but you know, homeostasis, like when you get the cut. And so I was just like thinking while I was putting the poems together, I somehow got to thinking about that and obsessively researching it and reading about, you know, because like, how does your body know that there's a cut? How does it fix it? And so the first night is like the homeostasis, or your body trying to get to where it was, etc. And I think so before we finish, I will read you guys one of each phase of the wound. So one from the first night, one from the first pang, and one from the first touch. And that's, yeah, so that's what threads the poems through, I think, as well. It's so okay. This one is called A Wound Cauterized in Light, from the first night. Okay. All right. The days we slash and stay. How the body never quite writhes itself free from blister and bruise, catches on the skin of every doubt. Some memories are so porous with pain, we would rather let them slice again, renew our here and now, aching like that first night when the blood takes precedence. The red and warmth of it, the sincerity in suffering for someone else. How we picnicked in the panic, anesthetized, smiling, finally even, each holding the other closed, careful not to touch the wound. Back then, Before we knew what we were doing, before the body still sore to the touch, unscarred, and before the first time we'll undress just to brag, compare how deep the wound, how forever. Time having not started scabbing over. And then, last night, needing to lose something, how I unstitched it all on the dirty dinner table, the hold of old bandages, the itch of grief, and all that it withheld, I hurled at you. All the hurt I could or hoped to find, and how for a second, everything held. This is your poem. Thread and needle are in the blue drawer. Take what you need, leave when you must. So that's from the first night. Then the first pang, the first time you feel the pain. It's called A Grammar of Absence. At first, I save a little money. Keep every scrap of sightseeing and every splinter from the here and now, poem and wound alike, degree, debris, dirt. I press them into crisp dictionary pages to read you, but the waiting gets too long, not a year or two, and the story goes stale and harder for us to hear. I lose most of my Arabic to the waiting. I lose the rest the moment I stop forcing myself to forget. A moment before the dictionary pages mildew, I taste my nature. I am a terrible granddaughter, pathetic with need, dismisser of spilled blood, wasteful women whining that she is still worthy. Did you ever tell me I was not? I want to save the woven cover, but I have to save myself first. You expect too much of me, a call, a visit, announcing a child or a marriage or a miscarriage, blaming someone or something, blaming someone for something, anything that will excuse the absence. I save my tears, unshed, salt unspent, and go home to the poem I wrote you in a language you could not understand. I sleep inside words you will never mouth, never mispronounce. I do not save enough money to cross the distance. I do not save enough money to cross you. You have died, and I'm still comparing metaphors. So close to finding the right words, the ones that say what you want to hear, and I don't know what you want to hear, and now you can't hear me, and I need you to hear me, so I can ask, did you miss me? What do you want me to say, Granddad? And tell you what I need to tell you as soon as I find the right words, and soon I will find the right words. And one from the first touch. It's called Overstay Appeal, and it's the last poem in the book. Overstay Appeal. The following documents must be submitted. 1. Written representation. 2. A copy of the Declaration of Undesirability, Form 19, issued at the port of entry. 3. a copy of the relevant pages of the passport, including bio page. 4, acknowledgement of receipt in cases where the applicant has applied for a permit and the status is still pending. 5, if the applicant overstayed due to medical reasons, a medical certificate must be submitted. I have borrowed money from everyone I love. I have thrown dinner parties. I have wanted to go home. I have wanted to stay. I have wanted to be many things, but not this tender. Thank you. Thank you.
Ooh. Oh. Wow. Okay. Sure. Yeah, I'm out of words, and I don't know if we're still on time, because I heard you were like the last few poems. I was like, is it that time already? Is it?
I think so. I don't know. It's up to you, up to you guys. But I'm so happy to chat to you and hear everyone else's, and to, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Ed, are we good with time? Okay. Yeah, I think I kind of saw the kind of preoccupation with the wound, and I guess the reoccurrence of the wound and picking at it or slicing it. It's this kind of like embodied experience, especially with how all these themes I would say like visceral beyond the body, but come out through sort of the different kind of placements of the wound, and I guess the phases of the wound. And yeah, yeah, like I mean, you've already actually just said that you were reading up on this, and because I was actually thinking maybe that's the question I should ask, like if you know what that process kind of looked like in yeah, like whether this is a kind of metaphor for your experience, what that looked like, and especially coming out and how it comes up in your writing, or the way that you choose to explore it, I think, in your writing, maybe. Yeah, I don't know if you can kind of respond to that, or if that was a mouthful.
I think, no, I was following. Yeah, I think, you know, again, the interesting thing about poetry as a medium is because you don't write it in one sitting, you know, like it's not a novel. You don't necessarily, like, I mean, these poems, I wrote them in the last 10 years, you know, like over and over, and some became 2 poems or whatever, but I didn't really notice the preoccupations that you said, or how I dealt with them with language, you know. So as you said, they're visceral, more than visceral, but they come through. That's a beautiful way you put it. But just how like present the body is, even though a lot of, you know, just to please allow me to not separate myself from the work and to just say me instead of the poet, but really just how hard I tried to run away from the body, basically, and writing was this intellectual thing, I thought, that allowed me to separate and it did really, like, really the poetry, that's what I'm saying. Also, it's so personal. It wasn't like a hobby, you know, separate from everything that was going on in our lives. So maybe that's why it ended up being a lot more visceral than I liked, than I resisted, you know, like really. And it was really when I was putting the poems together, I didn't have a structure, you know, so it was really just then when I was submitting them that I thought, okay, what's the narrative, what's going on here, you know? And and obviously I was thinking about that, but I also somehow I think I was writing the If You Ever Knew Thirst poem about the wild horses that get and it's proper research. It's literally like in Hermanus, the biggest herd of wild horses that we have, I think, that's never been fed, whatever. So, but anyways, I was reading about these horses that I accidentally found, and I read this thing about how when hurt, the horse will like go away to heal the wound, you know, and then come back. And so then I was like, you know how like creative brains also, I was like, oh, let me Google the wound, etc. So this is what we ended up with. But it's interesting that, you know, when it's put like this, I'm like, okay, well, these things have really like helped me. They've plagued me, but they've also helped the poems deal with whatever it is, you know? And maybe I'm zooming in too much, and maybe you want to talk, you know, we could talk about whatever you want, like not being able to go back home or feeling exiled, or the body, like the body is a slaughter. In Arabic we say it's a salad, we're meaning it's a mess, you know? So, but yeah, it's that's what I love about poetry as a medium is that you don't even really notice, okay, well, there is some sort of thread, like your brain was doing something or you were feeling something in your life. And that's actually beautiful predictability, you know, like it's almost like stability in a way, because even though the events that wrote those poems were different, it seemed like I was still processing the same things, you know? Yeah, but
Yeah, I think so. And I don't want to yap too much before I bring this. See, there's already a hand up. So I will in order to kind of like divert from the yap, I will ask dramatic storyteller. Sorry, that's all I can see on my to come forward and ask a question or share a thought.
Alice.
And Frank, there's two people. There was dramatic storyteller, and then Frank is also has their hand up.
Weird. Mm.
Frank.
Oh, I didn't hear that you called me. I'm happy to ask the question. Thanks so much, Sarah. I want to go back to the set you read, which was things to keep and things to leave behind. And what I liked there about that is basically that whole idea of being suspended between two things, almost two countries as well. And yeah, it seems to be something that, yeah, that gives the poetry something really compelling and something really gritty. And it seems to be there also when you talk often about the grandmother or the grandparents and that gap there. And and of course in the last poem that almost situates almost in the middle of all of that. And I was just thinking and wondering whether in all your work, maybe future work as well, we'd have that element as as an underlying texture, underlying fabric, you know, in your different writing projects.
That's beautifully put. Yeah, it's really beautifully put. I don't know. Like, I don't know if, let's put it this way. So even with the new writing, I'm writing a novel now actually, and it seems, and it's the, you know, right now I've just been obsessed with this concept of waiting, you know. And again, the setting is different in the novel. First of all, it's a novel, just like language, the language of waiting, etc. But now, as you were speaking, I'm thinking being suspended between two countries and waiting, or actually just either the same thing or mirror images of the other thing, you know. But whereas some of the poems here kind of, for example, that one, yeah, like you said, what you leave behind is it's struggling with that, and it can't like cope with that fact. Other poems or other writing, or just you know, as I don't know, as one grows. For instance, this wasn't easy to write, but I must say, like, there was some sort of healing happening when I put it down, you know, and it's a really lovely feeling. Like, even now, you asking me this, I can speak about it from the outside, whereas inside that poem, you know, the girl in that poem, like, it plagued her, and it was overpowering and overwhelming and not sustainable. But now, from a different, just from outside, I'm thinking, still suspended. I'm still suspended somehow, but maybe it's beautiful in a different way, or it's plaguing in a different way, you know, which means maybe there is some sort of arrival and departure. Like, I'm just thinking out loud here, but it's a very lovely question that you asked. And what do you think?
Yeah, well, it's a question in a way also about displacement. And when you have displacement in you, in your being, in your cells, you know, it will always be with you, but obviously you have a new relation to it. And I guess the last thing to say is that when you create something of beauty through that, using that hurt, that pain, you are already helping yourself in a way deal with it and move to a new place, not a place free of it, but a new relationship, and hopefully a more comfortable with it, but it will always be there. So when you say you're writing a novel, when I open that book of Sarah's novel, I have this feeling that displacement will come there, and we can all relate. In fact, everybody can relate, either in a small way or big way, to this notion of displacement. We felt it before in some small way. So thank you.
That's beautiful. Thank you. No, that's really beautiful. It's the relationship to it, our relationship to it. And a new country to leave is literally one of the chapters, and it's exactly that. So I must be home in a way, or I must be at home in the way that that poem wanted, because now, you know, I'm ready to have a new relationship with being suspended, and it's I think overall like a more luminous one. Thank you. That was beautiful. That was really beautifully put, and I will explore it actually in the writing. So thank you. Thank you, Frank.
Yeah, cool.
Ed, you can go ahead.
Hey, Sarah, I just, whenever you read, I'm just very moved, very powerful poems, and enjoy the layered quality of the poems, the things that get into that salad, or I think you referenced a salad.
Slaughter. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, but my question was, I was wondering about the you in some of the poems, who is addressed, or if you have an idea of who is being addressed, or if that's something you go towards in the poem. Yeah, just curious about.
Yeah. The you, let me
Sorry.
think. No, but no, really, it's let me think of how to phrase it, or like how to put it into words. But a lot of the time, I think it's, and obviously the reader. So okay, the overall idea is that I write it in the hopes that everyone, or like the reader, can decide whether the you is them or the way you hear it in your head, you know, because I think I don't know if you hear it almost said verbally, but the way you hear it is you're saying the poem to someone else, you know? So when I write you, a lot of the time I'm talking to myself, let's say. It's most of the time, actually. Yeah. And again, and you know, I haven't like sat and gone through every page, but when you ask me, this is just what's coming up. A lot of the time it's talking to, like, addressing myself, but here and there, obviously, there's the other. And it's from a linguistic or like a creative, you know, writing technical point of view, I've noticed that you makes the poem sometimes feel better and less self-indulgent, at least as I'm writing, you know, because it's like you get tired. And my poems are super, you know, first person, quite like you know, autobiographical is maybe you know the word. So sometimes really it's just the convention of thinking, okay, well, in order for this poem to be taken as it's what's supposed to be, you works better. A lot of the time though, it's to me it's like I'm talking to myself, and then ideally it's read how. So what do you think when you read it? Is the you very harsh, like is it at you,
No,
or yeah?
I think it's open. It allows for the kinds of possibilities that you just spoken about. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And it's beautiful because in English, you is so ambiguous as well. You know, like you can be one or many. In Arabic, it would be like inter, inti, into, like it would. It's not the same word. There's 5 words for you. You know, so I wouldn't be granted this beautiful ambiguity. Thank you very much.
Lini, you have your hand up. Please ask a question or say your thoughts.
So yeah, you just brought up language, and Arabic having all of these different ways of saying you, which I just find fascinating. And I was thinking about the question of language just before when Ed was speaking, and there was a poem, and there seemed to be sort of like some kind of poignant element of the language and your relationship to the language. And I just wondered, what is your relationship to Arabic? Did you find that this idea of being in a different country or being in a liminal space or being displaced, how has it affected your relationship to Arabic? And do you write poetry in Arabic?
Mm. Thank you. Yeah. And I don't know, that's the it's a huge, I think it's honestly the relationship to language thing is basically what it's the probably my biggest preoccupation, or I'm constantly thinking and suspended, as Frank said, because firstly, I only learned English when I was a teenager, so it's not my home language, and I keep realizing that, and I keep being shocked every day because it pops up in very small things, you know, like when I count, I just immediately I count in Arabic, and I had a whole conversation about this with my dad and just all the research that like it's just that small. Or for example, I started learning French this year, and I don't learn French from English. I learn it from Arabic. I can't, you know, so English is my second language. But of course, I mainly, I mean, I basically only speak English. I speak Arabic to my parents sometimes, and I've never written in Arabic, not a single poem. I love Arabic. It is the most beautiful, poetic. It is just stunning. Like it really is. And Libyan, I speak a dialect of Arabic also, which is North African Arabic, and it's just lyrical, and they have these long ballads and spoken song, can't remember now what the words are called, but nomadic like song, 20-minute long poetry, sang is Naja. It's called the Naja, and it's so beautiful. And I spend weekends sometimes just looking and reading it and trying to find the translations for it. But yeah, I haven't written. So the relationship to Arabic is, as you said, from that poem as well. Like I force myself to, I kind of forget when I stop trying to forget, but that's also kind of just for now. So again, what Frank said about being suspended, because it's always there, like even the absence is there. I bring it in here and there, like the Arabic me and my voice. But yeah, so I think language is, what do you think again? But it's a huge part of this whole book is the fact that I can only say these things in English, and that there is that distance that I don't want to cross, or I can't cross anyway, between me and English, and that's probably why I can put my feelings and thoughts in that way, whereas arguably one should be more eloquent and, concise, I guess, in their home language. But
I think I asked that question because my generation has has lost their mother tongue basically. Yeah, so I mean, I think I have
what's your mother
language
tongue?
like Tamil.
Okay.
Yeah. So my mother was literate and spoke and sung and everything in Tamil, but because we were kind of, having to be educated in English, we were encouraged to, well, I mean, yeah, not encouraged to speak. So we were spoken to at home even in English. So it is kind of like a wound for me. And but yeah, I just love that you can still, you still count in Arabic, and you still, there's this, and when you're translating into French, you translate, oh well, I love those kinds of that kind of idea, even though it can, I guess, be confusing sometimes or not. I don't know. But it's layers, I guess, of language, layers of
But like you
layers
said,
of
it's comforting, for instance, in
yes.
your and in mine too, because it's physiological. It's almost, I don't know what psycho. I don't know what the words are, but it's comforting to me that, okay, I'm not intellectualizing this when I actually need language, when I have to 1, 2, 3, 4, immediately my brain's every day, I promise you. And every time it happens, it's a cute little like, okay, I'm still Arabic. It's a weird, cute thing. I've never worded it this way, but it is comforting. And again, like when I don't know the word, even in English, or when I'm learning French, really, the moment I try to speak French, even, or someone speaks French, I reply in Arabic. I don't reply in English. So clearly, in my head, whatever that means, in like viscerally, or I am, and that to me is comforting. And in your case, from what I hear, also it's a comforting thing. I think it's also, I guess English is nice because of that distance, to us, but that's also a whole different conversation and a whole other book, because like Libyan there's no dictionary for Libyan, for instance. And my mom comes from a tribe, a Mazir tribe, and they were not allowed to use their dialect or their language at all at school. So Arabic actually was the colonizer, like we were colonized, Arabized. So that's a whole different conversation. But to me, it's like, oh, well, English colonized the Arabic, and so on. But language is like really, it's the most fascinating aspect. And then everything in the book and just in my head revolves around these ideas, and like how emotions are grammatical first, and like and I teach English for a living as well, and it's all swimming in there, and then sometimes it comes out in the poetry as well. So thank you for noticing that.
Thank you.
Wow. So yeah, so interesting. I think I want to segue into Frank. I probably imagine, because the hand went up while this conversation was happening. So I think
Yes.
if you want to respond, yeah, definitely. Okay.
So it's just a quick question, a quick comment on language. Sorry about that. So on language, what's interesting about it is that you're saying, Sarah, that you don't write in Arabic, but what about, there's something sometimes about language that can come into English, a sensibility of that language can come into English, even though you're not writing in that language. So Rohana Rousseau wrote a book, a novel that was called something about what would people say about me, and the whole novel is in English. But actually the feeling is Afrikaans, Cape Flats, totally. And then on Saturday, I was chairing a kind of a session, and then the person who had just finished a book about themselves said, "Oh, but this was my coach." And I said, "But your book was in Afrikaans, and this person who I know is a coach only speaks English, doesn't understand Afrikaans. How do they help you?" And he corrected me exactly like with the point I'm saying. He's saying we were talking, I was being advised and coached on how to write this text. I wouldn't, even though that person didn't understand the language I'm working in, because we were talking about the meta language kind of thing. So there's these sensibilities, and I like it that you're operating between these two sensibilities. There's English and then there's Arabic, and it really brings something powerful to the texture.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. And like translated literature, and I love it. I love it. I just, for example, especially Spanish poetry, like Spanish written in Spanish, but then translated. And I'm convinced that you can just, exactly, sensibility, once again, Frank, thank you for that word, but you can hear that other thing, and poetry is a very special as well, me, again, I say, because there's no, for example, my favorite writer, Alejandra Pizarnik, she's Argentinian, she wrote in Spanish. There's no references in the poems themselves to anything, not the century, not her background, nothing, but there's just that thing under it sometimes, and obviously with my poems, I can't tell exactly whether it is there or not, and I like English poetry quite a lot too, and French and all that, but yeah, it's beautiful that you guys responded to that, and I never felt like my poems were strange and just misunderstood, I guess, even though that was also my obsession of like, can you understand me? Because I couldn't, but thank you very much. That's also a very good translation. Translations are fascinating and very inspiring, actually, field for creative writing as well, I think. Oh, this is Anne Sexton. This is another one of my favorites. One of my students asked if she's my mom. I said yes. No, but she wrote one of my favorite lines is "Live or die, you idiot, but don't poison everything." So I like to have her here to remind me. Yeah, okay, but I'm done talking. I think
Well, if you have Anne Sexton behind you, then you will fall into what in the academia they say very unfairly when we write poems which have the I in it. And a lot of biographical, they call it confessional poetry, and some of them look down their noses. And I really, really don't like them making that distinction. And they often quote Sylvia Plath, they quote Ingrid Jonker, some people quote Arthur Norke, and then they get a bit dismissive of it. But some of the most powerful poetry that we write touches on our lives, and it brings a person through that's I, but also not I, because there's another person as well in our poetry. But anyway, that's a story.
No, I agree. I agree. I did my thesis on that. I did my thesis on the accused confessional I and the complex thing about it. Yeah, okay. I really, because I'm like, oh guys, here's my poems, here's my thesis, listen to me, But no, thank you. It's a really, really good conversations that we're having. And it's also strange because I can't see anybody, so it's just a blank screen, but I know you are all here.
We definitely are still here. We're very much still here. Yeah, I think I'm just also quite in awe of how you kind of investigate the poetry in your poems. I don't know if that makes sense, but like there's this very rare sort of thing that I picked up because you do it several times where you're reading the poem and then it basically takes you into poetry, and I kind of get like what you're trying to do through this poem, but you're also kind of calling yourself out for doing it. And I think and I think that really probably speaks so much to your relationship with poetry and what you do with it and how you kind of read your experience and life through that practice. That's really, really quite gorgeous. So thank you so much, Sarah. I am thinking if anyone has any last thoughts, because we do need to have a break soon. I'm not even paying attention to time like in a real way, so I'm not sure what exact time we should be starting the open mic, but I do know that Sarah probably needs like a break to have some water after all of that. Yeah, but if anyone does have any urgent thoughts, please you might just blow our minds or something, so just that last thought.
Well, don't put them under pressure. I think we should all take a break. I think we'll take a cigarette and water break.
So, and then we can come back and do the open mic. Yeah,
we'll be back in 5 minutes or what?
It's 5 minutes, yes.
Excellent. Okay.